Now, a big mind shift has to happen. Brands and consumers are just getting to the point where they know that they can connect through social media. But what hasn't happened yet is that people need to realize that as much as they can connect in the virtual world, they can also connect in the real world and have real impact in their community. What does that mean? That means that in the same way that we run a business as effectively and profitable as we can, we should also run our community as effectively as we can, especially since government is usually riddled with debt right now and non-profits are so stretched. So what does that look like? When you assume that you need to run a community as effectively as you do a business, all the implications of data come to bear on the issue. So, for instance, the same way you get a utility bill like an electricity bill, you could get a social utility bill, which means every month in the mail you get a bill which tells you how your region, your area is doing in terms of the hunger issue. Now that can play out across multiple platforms, but the point of it is you need to rob the community of the anonymity of hunger. What you need to do is make it a source of civic pride so people can't ignore the issue as easily as they can ignore a hungry person standing on the street simply by looking past them. Now that could play out on APIs, that can play out on posters in school forums, that can play out in utility bills they receive every month. But it needs to be something that engages the competition that companies like Google are using with smart energy gadgets. You know, the data is borne out that someone won't just reduce their energy habits just because you tell them. But if you tell them that their neighbour's using less energy, they're all over it. And we need to do the same thing in the realm of hunger. You need to make it a source of civic pride that you don't have as many homeless people on the street, as many hungry people in your community as the neighbourhood next to you. So we engage all that data in the same way that you do with utilities and everything else once we've accepted this idea that we need to run our communities more effectively and take responsibility for that.
Sure. I guess that leads to our second idea, which is to create a hunger API, which would be a centrally available data store that has the best available data on where hungry people are, and also has the best available data on where resources for hungry people are, and that application programming interface can then be used by any project that wants to develop some kind of a solution or some kind of a visualization that we can specify we want to do this particular visualization, but create an easy and cleaned up, standardized data source that is available.
Yep, absolutely, and it's open, and maybe there's like an apps for hunger style challenge where you're using the API to make that. And the third idea is the idea of a resource map. And so, speaking back to the utility bill, the idea of getting these things printed, putting them in the schools, putting them in the community centers. So the resource map might be 100-mile radius of wherever that place is. And the resource map would have a digital component. There'd be this print piece as well. So talking a bit more about the digital piece, you can imagine it might look like a Google map. You might be able to put in your zip code, and it produces this visual. But then you'd be able to create a PDF, and then maybe that PDF is what's actually distributed. Maybe most of the users might actually not be using the map. They might actually be given or delivered this PDF